Where PPCM is all global, affecting women from everywhere.
Hey, Brianna, thank you for having me here today. I'm really, really excited and honored to be a part of Let's Talk PPCM. The age of 28, I had my youngest son. I was living in Indiana. We relocated to the state of Georgia, and I just didn't feel right. I knew something was off, something was different, and a couple friends were like, "You just had a baby. It's going to take your body time to bounce back." But something, my intuition told me it was something more serious than that. So, and I also had like a cold. So I go to the hospital, get to the ER, and there's like this flu pandemic going on. It's packed. They do a quick check, listen to me with the stethoscopes, tell me I have a touch of walking pneumonia, and send me home with a prescription. I remember the doctor specifically saying to me, allow this medicine 3 days to work. Do not come back before 3 days. So I go home. Mind you, I didn't have a big support system here because we had literally just moved here. And I'm in Metro Atlanta. So I go home. 2 days later, I'm laying down, and I just remember I couldn't breathe. And I remember something my grandmother used to say before she passed away at the age of 90. When she laid flat, she couldn't breathe. And when she was elevated, she was okay. And that would happen to me. I would lay down and I'm like, okay, I'm 28, but I'm feeling like my 90-year-old grandmother. Like when I lay flat, I can't breathe. And I called a friend and I said, I need to go back to the ER. Can you watch my kids? Because if I go to sleep, I'm not going to wake back up. That's literally how I felt. I go back to the ER. There's nobody there. It's empty, which was good in my case because now this time around they were more thorough. So after a lot of tests, I remember even when I got to the ER, this was so strange. So when I got to the ER, when they finally got me back to a room and they gave me, the bed to lay in, I sat in a chair next to the bed and pulled it up to the bed and leaned over it. And they were like, "What's wrong?" I said, "I can't lay in that bed. I can't breathe." So I literally had to sit in the chair and lean over the bed because I couldn't breathe if I lay back. Um, And then next thing you know, when they come in after they've done some scans and blood work and tests, and they literally hit me with everything. You have full-blown pneumonia, you have congestive heart failure, there's a hole in your lungs. Yes, postpartum, then they proceed to tell me about postpartum cardiomyopathy, PPCM, and that all of this is a result, of having my son. And I looked at the nurse and I told her, I said, I was just here and I was told not to come back for 3 days. This is the second day. I said, what would have happened if I didn't come back? And she looked at me and she said, only God knows. And from that moment, I was put in ICU. Um, and literally that began my journey with PPCM. From the diet, of course, there's going to be restrictions with fluid and fat. I was told not to eat more than 2,000 grams of sodium and 30 grams of fat a day. That seemed impossible, but honestly, I was able to do it when I got out the hospital. So when I got out the hospital, and if you hear the beeping and the noise, please excuse that because I'm currently in the hospital um, to get a valve repaired on my heart. So fast forward, it's been 19 plus years. My PPCM journey started almost 20 years ago this July, and I'm still fighting to overcome PPCM and still dealing with, hospital visits and treatments and things like that. But I remember when I got discharged at going back 19 years, and it was a Friday, and my mother, she picks me up. She came down to Georgia and she was like, well, what do you want to get to eat? And I remember the nurse telling me, if you don't eat right, you're going to end up back in here. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do right. I'm going to do right. So we pass a restaurant and it's Friday. So it's seafood Friday. So they have like all this fried catfish and fried, French fries. And so I'm like, well, it's fish. It's seafood. I'm going to be okay. So we go in, we eat dinner. And as soon as we left and get in the car to pull out, my heart starts racing. I start having these pains. That was enough to just bam, whip me right into shape. From that point, I believe when I had my son, I was around 215, and I'm 5'10". And when I was diagnosed, I was about 185. At my 3-month checkup after having that experience with that fried food, I was 145. So I got really serious about what I ate. I could eat 3 meals a day and 2 snacks and not eat 30 grams of fat. It's possible. It's definitely possible. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's possible. So I did good with medications for a while. I guess you would say my condition was being managed, so I was manageable. And fast forward to 2008, I got my defibrillator. That's when I got my first. I don't know if you can see my scar. Can you see the scar? It's like right here. Yep. And so, and I would like move it a little bit, but it's been irritating me lately, so I'm not gonna mess with it. So I got my first implantable defibrillator, and I went 8 years without experiencing any shocks, and that was really good. So from getting the defibrillator, and my defibrillator initially was just a defibrillator. Currently, I have a defibrillator pacemaker combo. Even though it doesn't pace my heart, it's just there as a backup in case I do need that in the future. Well, from 2008, getting my first defibrillator, 2010, I started to go downhill again with my heart failure as things began to deteriorate. And the decision was made that I needed to be listed for transplant. So October 2010, I'm going through my transplant evaluation process. And there was some scar tissue, believed scar tissue on my lungs. And let me back up the week before. So the week before, I wake up with this excruciating. No, I didn't wake up with the pain. I woke up to go to the restroom, but I felt like my legs still fell asleep. I did experience excruciating pain later, so let me get to that. So I go to the restroom, walk downstairs, and on my way back upstairs, this pain hits my leg, and I can't walk. So I'm yelling for my family. It's like 5 in the morning. I'm waking everybody up, like I need help. I'm literally crawling up the stairs with my arms, like crawling up the stairs screaming for help because my leg is killing me. Call paramedics, the fire department comes. By this time, I've made it up the stairs. They carry me down. They rush me to the closest hospital. And I was diagnosed with pinched nerves. And at the time, the joke was, I don't do anything. How did I get pinched nerves? Like, where did these come from? And what am I supposed to do? And I was told to learn to live with the pain. We were already scheduled to travel that weekend. Went out of town, and we fly back to Atlanta. And even at the airport, like I couldn't walk. I had to get wheelchair assistance. And when we got back here, that's when my transplant evaluation process was already scheduled to begin. But while I was at that other hospital and was diagnosed with the pinched nerves, I was calling my transplant team at that time, giving them my heart team, transplant team, giving them all the updates, letting them know what's going on. So when I got to the hospital to begin this evaluation, I met with a neurologist and some other specialists, and they're like, "Well, let's figure out what's going on with your leg because you don't have a pinched nerve." And I said, "Well, you haven't even evaluated me. How do you know that?" They said, "You don't have a nerve that affects both legs." So immediately I'm already, taken back and kind of upset because now I feel like I was just mishandled and there was another misdiagnosis. Fast forward a week of going through my transplant evaluation, everything's going good. There was a mass that was found on my lungs while they were trying to figure out what was going on with my legs. And it was determined that they wanted to present my case at this major conference that was going on in Atlanta, just to get a consensus from a larger group of physicians on what to do with my lungs. Okay. So they come back and decide that I need a lobectomy. They're going to remove one of my lower lobes of my lung, just to clear out anything else being wrong, because to get listed for transplant, we need to make sure everything was okay. And I agreed, and we moved forward, had my lobectomy, and then they come back and say, it looks like cancer. And I'm like, no, you're just playing with me. I like to joke and keep a light atmosphere with all my healthcare providers. And they're like, no, it really does look like cancer. Well, it did come back stage 1 lung cancer. And with everything in me, there was nothing in me that wanted to be upset, because with everything I've already gone through in my heart, I was said, so, I remember one of the physicians telling me that, you have a right to be upset. You're going through so much. You're young. This just isn't fair. And I said, well, I'm blessed. And she's like, no, we literally go back and forth like 5, 6 times. She was like, no, but you've been through too much, and it's just not fair that all of this is happening to you. And I said, I'm blessed. So my other physicians calling me on vacation in Hawaii with his family, I can hear them running around on the beach. And he's like, I'm just so sorry this is happening to you. I told my wife about you. And he said, if we could just get you a new heart, you'd be fine. You're perfectly healthy with the exception of your heart. And I'm like, I'm blessed. So finally, I just, then the physician that's there with me, after going back and forth with her a couple of times, I said, let me just ask you a few questions. It was only stage 1, right? She said, yes. I said, and it didn't spread to my lymph node. She said, no. And I said, I don't need any chemo or radiation. She said, no. I said, so I was cancer-free before I even knew I had cancer? She said, yes. I said, I'm blessed. Like, yeah, there was nothing in me. I'm like, I'm already fighting to live with heart failure, and I'm about to be listed for transplant with lung cancer that we didn't even know I had, and we found it by the grace of God because of some pain in my legs that turned out to be 10 blood clots. I'm extremely blessed. Not only did I survive this lung cancer diagnosis, and now I'm cancer free, I just survived having 10 blood clots and taking a flight. No, I'm blessed. So if PPCM hasn't taught me anything else, it's definitely taught me perspective. It's definitely taught me grace, and it's in gratitude, and to be thankful, even for the things that seem like they're going wrong, then they turn out to be going right. So
that's beautiful. Oh my gosh. That's definitely a lot to take in. But when you know that it's God and that He is allowing certain things, then we can't do nothing but try to accept it and see what it is in that situation that He's trying to tell us or show us.
yes,
A lot of times that's what I try to explain to people. Just because you got sick doesn't mean, oh my God, you about to die. It doesn't mean that. Just sometimes be like that warning or wake up call, and He's using that illness. And for you, when you get blessed, I would say blessed with an illness, especially in your
yep,
younger years, it's a road to something. You have a better road
definitely,
you have to get ready to head down. So that's
definitely.
anybody out there with an illness. No, it doesn't mean, oh my God, life is at the end. No, that just means you're gonna live and
Hmm.
not just survive, because that's what we learning, right, Miss Tina?
Yeah. Oh, we living. We're
Yeah, you
living.
know, in and out of
So
doctor, in and out the hospital.
yeah.
We make it.
So when you mentioned the defibrillator, so I had the defibrillator at this point. So now, because of the cancer diagnosis, guess what? I can't get listed for transplant. So back then, you had to be cancer free. Any type of cancer you had to be cancer free for 5 years before you could be listed for transplant, because anti-rejection medications that you have to take while transplanted can cause cancer cells to spread and grow. Yeah, as you see, I'm in the hospital. So, and I didn't say this part. I'm here for a procedure to get my valve repaired, but I got here yesterday and tested positive for COVID. So, yeah, it's actually my first positive COVID test throughout this pandemic. So, um, I had no symptoms, so now I have like some small symptoms, the headache, and my throat is a little sore, like right here. But that's it. So I'm still doing good,
Praying that you get
considering.
soon.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we're talking about being listed for heart transplant. And because of the cancer diagnosis, that was off the table for at least 5 years. So this is when the LVAD was first presented to me, which is a left ventricular assist device. For those who aren't familiar, there's actually a pump that's implanted through open heart surgery that's actually attached to your heart. So you have one part that's attached to your left ventricle, the other part is attached to your aorta, and it pumps. It actually is the pumping chamber to pump blood through your body. well, not through your body, but through your heart chambers, in which is going to supply blood and oxygen to your body. So when you reach that severe heart failure stage where transplant is not an option, especially with a lower EF, my EF had dropped down to 5%. LVAD is an option. So it's either destination therapy or bridge to transplant. So some people get it until they can be listed for transplant. And for those people who are not eligible for transplant, they may have it as destination therapy. So they have it for a long haul. And I'm happy to say now there are actually people who are getting it as a recovery option. So there's technology is just amazing, especially medical technology.
And you actually go out and help these women or advocate for these
Mhm.
women.
Mhm.
Yes, please
Yep.
talk about that.
So when I wasn't eligible for the heart transplant, and they first approached me about the LVAD, I said nope. There's so much fear, anxiety about the unknown. I was 36, and when they first presented it to me and the way they described it, it was like it was going to be like a defibrillator. I'm like, oh, okay, good, I'm cool. And so when they walk in the room one day to show me what it looked like and further explain, they started talking about this tube coming out my side with some batteries and controller I'm gonna have to carry. And I was like, oh, I'm not getting that. And they were like, well, no, you need to live. I was like, no, I'm not. I'm 30. I'm not getting that. I'm 36. And I was just being real because this is what my raw reaction and feeling and emotion was. I said, I'm 36. I've never been married. Who's gonna want to date me with that? I'm not getting that. And they're like, well, you're not going to survive without it. And I was like, well, you don't know my God. So, and so I went home with a PIC line, which is an IV, a portable IV, where you can receive medications in an outpatient basis. So I was being stubborn. So I went home with a PIC line and had my PIC line for 6 months. And like I said, my EF went down to 5%. So I had to get the LVAD. I finally felt like I'm not going to survive if I don't get this. And then that's when I finally made that step and I received my LVAD. So fast forward.
You remember what your EF was just her ejection fraction. So was that before you had got the PIC line? Like, do you remember, was it higher than 5%?
It probably was like 11 to 15. It was higher than 5.
Wow. Okay. So
It was
the
higher
PIC
than
line.
5.
Oh, I remember them putting that on my sister, and she couldn't even go upstairs in her own home anymore because she had to walk around with that, and I don't think it helped at all. So you don't
Yeah.
think it helped at all?
No, and I have seen cases where it has helped some people. I've seen people where it's improved their cardiac output, but it didn't in my case.
Yeah.
And I forgot to say that when I first got diagnosed with PPCM, I was, I believe, at 26 or 27%.
Oh, wow.
When I first got diagnosed. And so so after getting my LVAD, some fasting food, I'm moving a little quick here. So I did eventually get the LVAD, and I have adapted to life in an amazing way. After some ups and downs, when I tell you I've had some lows, and when I say lows, like I've fallen. And I had the chaplain in the hospital ask me once, what was I most proud of? And I said that I've fallen, but that I got back up. That, with God's help, I didn't stay there, because isn't this world, this world of chronic illness is not easy. So, and when I mentor and, speak with other women and try to be encouraging and inspiring, I should say, that's one thing I tell them. I'm like, you have to allow yourself to have those moments. It's okay to release. Everybody says it's okay not to be okay, and it definitely is. Like, you have to release it. You're doing yourself more harm by holding it in. So, and I know I'm jumping back and forth, but I want to get back to what you asked me about the defibrillator. So
that was so true that you said that. I mean, it needs to be said.
You have to. So I was trying to remember what year it was. I can't remember. My son was, I believe, a freshman in high school. And you get those feelings sometimes where you just feel something's off. Like, you just know something's going on. We were living suburban. but he went to school in Midtown in Metro Atlanta. And he would normally catch the parking ride that was close to us. But I woke up this morning, didn't have any cash, and I just decided I'm just going to go ahead and take you. I didn't have, cash for bus fare, and if he load money on his card, it can take up to 24 hours for it to show. So go ahead and take them. And when we were leaving out that morning, I almost left my cell phone next to, like, literally right on the table next to the door. And I remember reaching back and grabbing it. Mind you, I didn't even have cell phone service. I just had a cell phone, just a little flip one, because I knew as long as there was, power to it, I could call 911. I was one of those, like, last people to get a cell phone. I just didn't. It just wasn't for me. And so, but I remember that morning, my arm, like, just felt off, and it just felt like it was still asleep. And I just kept, like, doing like this and trying to do, even while I'm driving, like, trying to do little exercises. I was like, something's not right. I was like, I don't know what's wrong. And so proceed to take my son to school. And as we get closer to downtown Atlanta, I remember just feeling faint. And I told my son, I said, something's not right. I said, look for that phone. And as soon as he starts looking for the phone, bam, I just see this, like, white flash. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm trying to figure out what that was because I'm driving. I'm going like 75. I'm on the highway. And then it sinks in. I said, oh my goodness, my defibrillator just shocked me. So I tell my son, dial 911. So as he's dialing 911, bam, I'm shocked again. And so as I'm approaching, I believe it was like I was close to the Grady curve. We actually were passing the old Brave Stadium. And I'm on the phone with 911 and I'm telling them, my name is my name is Marie. I'm approaching the Grady curve. I'm an LVAD patient. I have a defibrillator. My defibrillator shocked me, 3 or 4 times. While I'm talking to them, I'm like still being shocked. It's like, boom. I'm like, oh, it just shocked me again. And I remember my son asking me, why does it keep shocking you? And I said, I don't know. But I knew something was wrong. And I'm praying to God, like, please don't let me down the side of this highway with him like this.
Wow, yes. And with the shock, what was it like? Like, was it, what did you feel?
I literally I just remember seeing this white flash every time it shocked me. It was just like throw me forward. And I would just see this flash. I really wasn't feeling anything. And so I was able, it was nothing but the grace of God, everything, how that happened that morning. I was able to pull over to the left of the HOV. I remember looking in my rearview mirror. There was nobody behind us. There was nobody to the left of us. There was nobody in front of us, but there's all this traffic in all the other lanes. And to me, that was nothing but God, not just even protecting us, but protecting everybody around us.
Amen.
So, and after we got to the hospital, I remember asking the paramedics if I could use, their cell phone to call people because, like I said, I didn't have service on the phone I had. And so when I get in the ambulance, I tell them, I said, I've been shocked 4 or 5 times. And they connect me to the monitors. And I look at it and I said, does that say I'm in AFib and VTech at the same time? And they said, yes, we got to go. Because I was already downtown Atlanta and we got to my hospital, they said, had you been at home, you wouldn't have survived to make it here. So, and like I told you, I normally didn't take him to school. He normally caught the parking ride. So everything was by God's plan that morning. So I remember one of the first cardiologists walked into the room and he's looking around because I'm on the phone. I'm still using their phone, calling my mother, calling different people. And he's like, she's on the phone. She's talking. They're like, yeah. But mind you, I don't understand or I haven't been informed the extent of everything that's taking place already. And I'm telling him, I'm like, yeah, I've been shocked like 4 or 5 times. He said, where's the car? I was like, it's, on the highway next to HOV. He said, you didn't lose control of the car? I said, no. He was like, you were able to maintain control of the vehicle? I said, yeah, I was fine. I was like, I was able to pull over. I was talking to 911 and told them everything that happened. And then I hear them talking, one of the, when your defibrillator shocks you, they can do reports like interrogated to see, what the extent of everything was and run extensive reports to see what happened. it shows you things like what your heart rate was at the time, if you were in AFib, VTAC, it can give a lot of different data. So I remember listening to them talking, and I said, did you just say my heart rate was, I thought he said like 340. He said, no, your heart rate was 392. So because of my LVAD, they explained to me my heart was just vibrating. It still wasn't beating on the time. My LVAD was supplying me with just enough pumping function that I survived. Otherwise, I would have just collapsed and died. So when I felt faint, I was literally in cardiac arrest where I should normally, most people would have dropped dead while I was driving.
Wow.
But my LVAD, because I had the additional protection and support of my LVAD and God, I'm here. I'm so thankful to God for giving us these advancements and giving us, the tools that we need to be able to develop these type of things.
Exactly.
So I survived. And then my shock, I told you, I kept telling them I was shocked 4 or 5 times. And then I was like, did you say I was shocked 9 times? They were like, no, you were shocked 10 times. So when you asked me what did it feel like? I wasn't really feeling it because I was being shocked so much. I didn't even realize how much I was being shocked. I had got shocked 10 times in 1 minute and 39 seconds. And so even though I couldn't feel every shock, my son could see every shock. And then that's another thing, the trauma that our family members, our caregivers, our friends experience as a result of our chronic condition. Because that's traumatic to watch, anyone get shot that many times, but your mother and you're a young teenage boy. So that was a lot. I was in the hospital like 2-3 days after that happened. So what ended up happening, my heart still wasn't beating on its own. And they said, we understand you've been shocked a lot. And we know that was hard. They said, but we can't leave your heart in this condition. Otherwise you can develop a blood clot or you can die. They said, we're going to have to shock you one more time, but we have to do this externally and you can't be awake for this. That's when I finally lost it and broke down because I was convinced that I was not going to wake up because they had to put me to sleep to shock me. So, and thank God, it was part of my plan to still be here because after they put me to sleep, I was on a ventilator. They shocked me one time and my heart went back into a normal rhythm. And so when I got out the hospital, when I tell you, I literally could not, I was just so happy everywhere I went. I remember sitting at a car wash and there was an older Black gentleman sitting next to me. And I'm just sitting there itching. and I started talking to him and I'm like, excuse me. And he's like, yes. I said, I'm sorry, but can I tell you what God did for me? And he was like, yes. So I just proceeded to tell him the story about how I'm driving and I get shot by my defibrillator, but I survived and I found out my heart rate was 392 beats per minute. Literally everywhere I went, I was like, can I tell you what God did for me? Can I tell you what God did for me? So I was like, I really, really understood that song. I just couldn't keep it to myself. Because at that point, that's when I was like, you cannot tell me there's not a God. I just couldn't keep it to myself. I had my ups and downs and I've gone through those periods and I've survived those periods as well. And I'm thankful, honestly thankful for those periods because being able to have the high and lows, it's almost just like our conditions in themselves. Being able to have that lived experience actually helps me to be more considerate, more compassionate and understanding of others that are going through these same type of, trials and obstacles and going down similar paths of what I've gone through, what you've gone through. So it's really helped me on this journey of advocacy and being able to, work with other mothers. So even with the awareness where we push for PPCM awareness and your organization is amazing. And some of the things I like to do is highlight organizations such as yours that are bringing awareness to PPCM. I like to, as a whole, highlight PPCM, maternal health, just as a whole, because the maternal mortality rate in the United States is just, it's kind of really unbelievable. It's kind of like you don't have words for it. But then the fact that people just aren't aware, even PPCM, when I still meet mothers, 18-year-olds who have never heard of this, or when I'm in the ER and I meet someone who's never heard of it. And of course, many of us know cardiomyopathy is one of the leading causes. I've read other multiple reports where it says cardiomyopathy is the leading cause of maternal mortality. And then just to know that there are so many, I mean, the majority of people out there are just unaware that this can happen as a result of pregnancy. So to be able to connect with mothers who are going through this, who may not be able to find the support, even just having the support groups, I love those. But what a bigger part of my purpose that I really, really enjoy is being able to have those one-on-one connections where someone may reach out to me on social media, build a relationship. And our relationships are not lifelong relationships. What I've had to learn as an advocate is that everything is not personal. I know that I'm serving a purpose that's greater than me and beyond me, and that God is using me to help people through different stages of their life. So I may not always be there forever. I might be placed in somebody's life to help them through this particular stage in their life. And I value that, and that's a great responsibility. But because I've gone through this experience, I feel like me personally, and everybody handles their experiences different. I know for me personally, I've gone through so much and God's helped me in so many different ways. I would feel selfish to not be able to help another young mother. I know a couple of young mothers right now in their 20s and that are having to manage and navigate the education system and helping them to know how to best advocate for themselves and for their children to make sure that they have the tools and resources they need. Because when you're going through this, like I said, it impacts the entire family, and it impacts everybody that's around you and connected to you. So being able to help mothers with navigating the education system, different resources that are available for their health insurance, resources available, it may be household needs, it may be for utility bills, just applying for Social Security, disability, or SSI. So going through all that and learning the things that I've learned and being able to use what I've gone through and taking what I know and what I've learned to help other people, especially on a personal basis, is like beyond me. Like I can't even explain like how it makes me feel.
Well, we are so thankful to have you as a heart sister, Miss Tina, because you are fabulous. Oh, I really thank you though for coming and just, with your transparency and being able to advocate and definitely share your story with us, because we know how important it is getting this information out, and which is another reason why we have this platform on to begin with.
I actually just reached another big milestone. So I said before that I've had 2 LVADs, but collectively I've had an LVAD for 10 years. And even just once I reached that milestone, I was talking to a friend and I said, that's a great responsibility to know that you've been afforded a mechanical device that's attached to my heart for 10 years to help prolong my life. That's a great responsibility to be able to use that and use myself as a tool to help and support other people and to show them that, life is still living, is still possible. Like I actually have been here on this earth for 10 years with a mechanical pump attached to my heart. Do you know how amazing that is?
That is definitely amazing, okay? Because not a lot of people will be able to handle that, handle that situation. And not a lot of women that is approached with that situation wants to go down that road.
I was that woman, remember?
Exactly. So I'm just so glad God able to use you for other women in that field and being able to educate them about the LVAD, what it may feel like, what it may look like, and
Hmm.
just what you may experience going through it and why you should get it in the first place if it comes to that point where they do have to get one. You
Yeah.
know.
Yes. Like these opportunities and these platforms are just great for awareness. Because if we don't share our stories or if we don't get the information out there, then people just don't know.
Exactly, that is so true. Oh, thank you so much, Miss Tina, for sharing your heart story with us. And we're gonna definitely keep y'all updated on more things that we are doing with the Latina for being with us again today. And we are signing out.